I was stationed at Barksdale Air Force Base with the 26th Weather Squadron there. We had just started doing operations there, taking over doing weather forecasts for Oklahoma and Kansas and things like that. And I'd actually just gotten off of a 12-hour mid shift about 7 o'clock that morning. So it was about an hour or so before anything had happened. And just so happened that day we had to have some cable work done on a house that a roommate and I were renting. And cable guy showed up, started putting everything together, and it went from just a static, black and white screen to all of a sudden, boom! There's a building on fire and smoke just coming from it. And at first, I didn't know what it was, and then it switched over to another building real quick, and the announcers are just talking away about a plane hitting a building, but they didn't say what building. As they switched to the second building on fire. The camera had panned back, and I said, "That's the Pentagon." My dad was stationed there years before, and it was pretty easily recognizable anyway as Pentagon. And I said, "That's the Pentagon." I was like, "Wow, that building's on fire." And there was another one before. I was like, "I don't know if it's related or not." Well, then they switched back to the World Trade Center. They still hadn't told me that it was the World Trade Center. It's CNN. I don't know why they hadn't said anything. But by that time, the cable guy's inside, and we're just staying there watching it, trying to figure it out. And They just kept saying a large jetliner had hit the building, and then they had another jetliner hit the Pentagon. And I just remember looking over at the cable guy. I was still in my BDUs, looking at him and said, "This isn't good." And about that, within seconds, the phone just rang. And I said, "This is really not good." And because I never get a phone call. I picked up the phone, and it was my supervisor at the time, Master Sergeant Bob Segretti, and he said, "Just so you know, we're now in ThreatCon Delta, or FPCon Delta now." So, and I said, "Okay, what do you need?" And he said, "You got to get to work." I said, "Okay," and I told the cable guy, "You got to go." And it took me about 2.5 hours to get to work. It was a 3-minute drive or 3-mile drive. But it took me over 2.5 hours to get there, just because of the clampdown with the new force protection measures. And I got into work, and the second plane had hit. And it was, it was at that time, pretty much you knew there was an attack going on in the country. And we had this big operations floor with these big screens, 6 feet by 6 feet, they're huge. And the television was on, and when I walked onto the operations floor, the first thing that I remember seeing was the buildings on fire, the smoke, people running down the street, and they cut to a camera shot of the building, and there was people jumping out of the building, and the camera just followed them all the way down, and you could hear them hit the ground. On the camera microphone, and it was just a sound and a sight that I have no idea why it was ever on television. I understand it's live TV, but that should have never made it to television. But we went to work. Those of us that had come off shift, we already had the people putting out the forecast for the bases that we did, and the rest of us just went to work. Hey, what can we do? Do we need to start doing door guards for the buildings and things like that? And one of our captains came and grabbed me. He's like, "Hey, I need you to do something," and actually pulled me in our skiff that we had in the building. And it was there. He's like, "You're going to do a forecast for Air Force One." I was like, "Oh, great! Senior airman doing a forecast for the president. It's nice." Basically, he said, they're going to go to this location. Need to get some weather for the route of flight, and he told me what the route of flight was going to be, and started working on that. About 30 minutes later, I handed it to him, and he was gone. He was taking it over to whoever he needed to brief it to. And about that time, there was President Bush on the TV, talking from the building that was next door. So that was pretty interesting. To see the president and then look out the window and see Secret Service kind of surrounding our building. So that was kind of interesting. And he made his first address to the nation. It just so happened that at that time at Barksdale, we had a large exercise going on. And so they had a bunch of B-52s that were already fully loaded with a bunch of missiles and JDAMs and all that good stuff that they have. And the general of ACC at the time, that was, or not ACC, excuse me, of 8th Air Force that was there, met the president, and he said, "Sir, just so you know, we're ready to roll. We have planes loaded." And President Bush's first word was, "Good." So, that story made its way around a little while later, but that day, it was probably the longest day ever. We were at work after we got called back to work. We were there for probably good another 6-7 hours, which means we went home for about 2 hours and had to turn around and come back to work. And it didn't matter. It still took us another 4 or 5 hours just to get back into the base. So for a few days there, it was pretty hectic. Just trying to, get around, just to get around, first of all, but to get around wrap your head around everything that had happened. It was definitely, it's just a time you just don't forget. There's things you don't forget about that. It's one of the reasons why I'm still here. So this is a picture of me and my brother-in-law. This was actually taken about 2 years and 2 months to the day prior to September 11th. And we were at the Empire State Building with my sister, and she had taken a picture of he and I. The World Trade Center was in the background. And it's kind of hard to tell in the black and white, but the black and white kind of sets the tone of the day. It was extremely cold and just cloudy and kind of rained off and on all day. But this is my brother-in-law. He's a logistics officer in the Air Force, and he's stationed at the Pentagon. And he went on deployment. This picture has been in about 6 different countries and on 2 different deployments. But he had taken it with him to Afghanistan on a 1-year deployment to Kandahar. And a few months later, about 7 months later, I was deployed to Salerno. And so he shot him an email, "Hey, I'm coming. If there's any chance of us kind of meeting up while I'm in transit, let me know." And unfortunately, there wasn't, but he had this picture with him. And when he went on, when he was leaving the country, he actually sent me some movies and things, and this was in with it. And so he went on his deployment, then went on my deployment, and came back with me to Germany, and consequently back to the U.S. We had a few things from home. We had a little Notre Dame towel up there. We had, a picture of, our wife and kids and whatnot, and we had this picture. And it was pretty easy to remember why you were there and why you were doing what you're doing when you see, a picture of the World Trade Center, before it was on fire and things. And it was definitely a motivating piece of photography.